Good morning, Year 9. I'm just making this video because you can use it for your lesson this afternoon to help you look at the impacts of deforestation in Malaysia. Now, please remember, if you're ill and you're isolating, there's no expectation for you to do the work, but if you are well enough to do the work, I will expect you to submit it to me through Show My Homework, okay? So we're looking at the impacts of deforestation in Malaysia, and it's going to be fairly similar to what you were doing about the kind of causes of Malaysia, making notes, but this involves a little bit more of sorting your notes into kind of categories, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So you can either do two things. You can either play the lesson and kind of write notes as you go along, or you can just watch the lesson first, and then I've attached a worksheet for you to do. So it's up to you. I don't really mind how you do this, but as long as you submit some work to me, then I'll be happy. So your starter was to just try and recap what the causes of deforestation were. There's some pictures to help you on the board. So like I said, if you want to do this like a lesson, you could pause the video here and try work out which ones are which, and then on the next slide I'll show you whether you got them right. Okay, so the first one was logging, where you're cutting down trees normally to be made into timber. The second was road building, which is kind of related to all the other types of deforestation, because getting roads to get into logging sites and mineral extraction, and energy development. Energy development, that's hydroelectric power, or HEP, and often they build dams and then let water through gradually, and that turns turbines, but they have to flood large areas in order to do this. Mineral extraction is mining. Population pressure, we looked at the way that they were trying to encourage more people to move to the countryside because the cities were too crowded, but having to build settlements because of that. Commercial farming was farming so that you can sell products, and then subsistence farming was slash and burn techniques used by people to feed their own families or themselves. So that's just a really quick recap on the causes of deforestation. I've also put the textbook chapter up on Show My Homework, so if you want to go back and have a look at any of these, that's available for you to look at too. So I'm also going to put a link to this video up on Show My Homework. This was a Christmas ad that Iceland put out. And while you're watching this advert, I'd like you to think about what is the message behind this advert, and why do you think this advert was banned? Because when it first came out, it was taken off of TVs and it wasn't allowed. So I want you to try to think about why might they have banned this advert. And that link will be on Show My Homework as well. So we're going to carry on looking at Malaysia. So I've just put this slide in to remind you what kind of country Malaysia's like. Just remember, it's a fairly large economy. They're fairly developed. You can see that from their HDI score there. But we talked about how they've had a history of deforestation and relying on natural resources in order to get their wealth, and they're trying to move away from that now because of the impacts it's had on their forests. So when we looked at that graph last week, we saw that actually there were some other countries who were deforesting more. Malaysia's kind of had its time in the 1970s and the 1980s, but it will kind of come again. So this lesson is all going to focus on impacts, okay? So an impact is another word for an effect or consequence, so they might use them interchangeably. It's something that has happened because of an action, okay? And in geography, we can group impacts into economic, social, political, and environmental impacts. And we're going to look at what each of those is now. So a social impact is the effect of an event on the lives of people or a community. An economic impact is the effect of an event on the wealth of an area or a community. A political impact is the effect of an event on the government of an area. And environmental impact is the effect of an event on the landscape and ecology of the surrounding area. So you've got social, which is to do with people, you've got economic, which is to do with money, political, which is to do with government, and then environmental is the environment, okay? And you're going to need to know all four of these different impacts. And on the worksheet, it'll ask you to write down some definitions for each. So you're going to have these questions to have a look at. and answer as well. And these are all on your worksheet, as well as writing down definitions of various impacts. I'll talk through them quickly, but all your information can be found in the textbook, which, like I said, will be linked on Show My Homework, so you can use that. We're going to start with looking at soil erosion, and soil erosion basically happens when wind and rain removes the layers of the soil. Now, soil takes thousands of years to form, but it actually can be worn away very, very quickly. And what we see is that normally the roots of plants help to keep that soil together. So if you take those trees out, you're actually going to have a situation where you've got more soil erosion likely to happen because those roots aren't binding the soil together. Biodiversity. So biodiversity is the kind of variety of plants and animals in an area, because we talk about diversity meaning a range of things. So it's the range of living things in an area. And rainforests have very high biodiversity. They've got lots of plants and lots of animals in them. Now, deforestation is destroying that ecosystem. So what will happen is that if you're destroying that ecosystem, you're destroying animals and plants' habitats. So you're actually going to reduce biodiversity by cutting down rainforests. And then question 3 is all about the kind of like mini case study that you've got about the Main Range Peninsula in Malaysia. And I want you to try and find 4 reasons why this area is important for biodiversity, and then write them down, please. Deforestation can also have an impact on global warming. So there's a couple of ways in which deforestation can affect global warming. And that's because trees actually absorb CO2 and they emit oxygen. So if you cut down a tree, it actually releases the CO2 that it's been storing. But also, if you're cutting down trees, there's not anything to then soak up that CO2 or that carbon dioxide. So it's more likely to be in the atmosphere, which causes our climate to warm generally. There's also a couple of other ways that are written down in the textbook. And it talks about how trees give off moisture by the process of transpiration. So deforestation results in the lack of moisture. And then the process of evaporation. If trees are cut down, this causes cooling, and this stops cooling from happening, and then temperatures actually rise. Okay, so there's a few ways that it can contribute to climate change. Now, there's also stuff about economic development. So remember, think about your money, and there's 2 sides to this. You can actually make economic gains from deforestation, things like selling wood, or you can sell the products from the mining or the farming or the energy. But there's also losses as well. So things like pollution, fires, things like that. So there's 2 sides to it which can affect the wealth of a country, and Malaysia in particular. So I'm going to ask you to draw out a table and then have economic gains on one side, economic losses on the other side. And you've got some bullet points in the textbook on page 63 to help you fill out this table. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to have a look at the impacts of deforestation in terms of sorting them into the different impacts. So I've got a table for you. Now, obviously you're not in lessons, so I can't give you this table. So I think what would be the best thing for you guys to do is to either write each statement out and then say which impact you think it is. Is it social, economic, political, environmental? Or to do 4 columns and then write the statements underneath each. Okay, so you can do it either way, but I can't give you the table, so you can't just write it into the table. Saying that though, you could print it from home and then write it on, and I think there is a slide for you to print this, okay? So you should have everything there that you need for this lesson. If there are any issues, just leave me a comment on Show My Homework, but please remember to submit your work once you've completed it. And I hope you have a lovely half term, and I'll see you when you return.